Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are already a subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Francia, and on this channel, we do a little bit of everything. But lately, I have been interested in true crime. And if you're interested as well, I hope you hit your subscribe button and your notification bell so that you always know when I upload. First, I want to say Happy New Year to you guys. Happy New Year 2025. I hope the new year has been treating you right, or at least better than it's been treating me. Because tell me why this year is treating me like this. I have been sick since the beginning of the year, like ringing in the new year. I couldn't even go to church. I was so sick. When I tell you I was mad because like church was lit and I had to watch online and I missed it, and like my kids were supposed to sing in the choir. I was supposed to sing in the choir. I got so sick. I couldn't even open my eyes. And I was just upset. So this is how I ring in the new year. Sick and bad. And I am still sick. So I apologize in advance if I sound a little lackluster. It's because I am not it. So please bear with me. I was determined to post this week. And so I'm thugging it out. I have to thug it out. So this is what we are doing. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Yeah, still left me hanging after I nicely asked. So don't forget to subscribe. Okay, now enough of my rambling and complaints. Let's get into today's video. I, however, want to preface today's video by reiterating that I never want to make excuses for the perpetrators in these true crime stories. However, this woman, again, not making excuses for her, but this woman was dealt a hand, okay? She was dealt a miserable hand, and I do not see an angle where she would have come out on top, where she could have overpowered the demons within her, because she had zero support. She literally was just abandoned with all of her demons inside her, and they literally just took over her body. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Without further ado, let's get into today's story. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, this woman, whose life and crimes shocked the nation, unalived 7 gentlemen while working as a sexy time worker in Florida. Who exactly are we talking about? Let's get into it. Eileen Carol Pittman, also known as Eileen Wuornos, was born on February 29th. Oh, she has my sister's birthday. Ew. Was born on February 29th, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan. Her early life was marked by instability and abuse, as she was abandoned by her parents and was raised by her grandparents, but the household was far from safe. Her mother, Diane Wuornos, was only 14 years old when she married 18-year-old Leo Pittman on July 3rd, 1954. Yo, what was going on in those times? Who married them? Was the whole underage situation not a thing back then? Because how the heck did an 18-year-old dude get to marry a 14-year-old little girl? That's crazy to me. What do you mean? Who officiated the wedding? Please don't do. But I guess it didn't matter back then. Crazy stuff. But I'm guessing homeboy had already had relations with the little girl, because that's usually why they force marriage between two people, especially back in them days, is if the young woman is with child. Now you have no choice but to make an honest woman out of her to avoid shaming both families, you know? And also, I'm guessing they didn't throw people in prison for sleeping with minors, because what? Hodimla? You could do this and get away with it? Anyways, at first that's what I thought, but she got married on June 3rd, 1954, and she gave birth in March 14th of 1955. So it looks like she got pregnant right after she got married. So I guess he was just a pedo, you know? Anyway, so she gave birth to Eileen's older brother then, and when she was pregnant with Eileen, not sure why, but she decided she did not want to be married to this man anymore, and she filed for divorce. She was 16 years old when she gave birth to Eileen, so Eileen never did meet her father, because in 1967, the dad, Leo Pittman, was sentenced to life in prison for the kidnapping and raping of a 7-year-old little girl. What? Are you crazy? 7 years old? I mean, technically, we can't be that surprised because I think, as you may have picked up by now, he liked them young because Diane was only 14 when he started messing with her while he was a whole 18-year-old man. So, not that surprised, but 7 though? That is beyond. That's beyond. And I'm glad homeboy ended up in jail finally, because what are you doing, sir? Que problème, frère? M'saisi. I am shooketh. Now, the dad, Leo Pittman, was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he ended up taking his own life while he was in prison. So, and that's what happened with the dad. Now, let's back it up a little bit. In January of 1960, when Eileen was about 4 years old, Diane, the mom, she skipped town, okay? She jetted, she bolted. She was like, I do not want to do this anymore. And she left her children with her parents, who were both heavy alcoholics, and they legally adopted them in March of 1960. And from there, things just went downhill for Eileen, and really her brother as well, you know? Eileen was neglected, physically abused, and left to fend for herself at a very young age. She turned to the streets, trading favors for survival. I can only imagine, as a child, oh my gosh, my brain can't even fathom having to care for myself, having to protect myself against a whole bunch of adults. And if you're unable to protect yourself, then you have to endure the abuse at the hands of these grown adults who technically, as far as you're concerned, are your parents. And they're doing these things to you. I can't even, my brain cannot even process that type of situation. When I tell you her life just derailed, it just derailed. By the time she was 11, Eileen was engaging in sexual activities in school in exchange for things like cigarettes, drugs, and food. Again, I know this is a thing over here. Like, people will smoke at a young age. They will do drugs and things of that nature. But like I said, my brain cannot process these things because I come from a different culture. I have a different foundation. So it's really hard for me to imagine, like, at 11 years old being involved in sexual activities and drinking and smoking. Like, I'm just so thankful for the fact that I didn't have to survive in that sense under these circumstances, you know what I mean? Because that's just so sad. Ooh la la, too much. It was said that she and her brother would also partake in sexual activities. You know, oh my gosh, like, incest was involved in her life. Can you imagine? Ugh. And Eileen also reported that her grandfather, whom she thought was her actual biological father, also sexually assaulted her and beat her when she was a child. He would force her to take off all of her clothes, and then he would proceed to do whatever it is that he did to her. Poor child. Like, I know what she did was wrong. There's no justifying her taking so many lives, but also my heart aches for her and what she went through as a child. Two things can be true at the same time. Her actions were by no means okay, and at the same time, she went through it as a child, as a young child. I have no words. When Eileen was 14, she was raped by a family friend, and she became with child. She gave birth to the child, and then the child was placed for adoption. And right after the birth of her baby, she lost her grandmother and also dropped out of high school. So let's see, 14 would have made her a freshman in high school. So all she had really was a middle school education level because she dropped out as a freshman in high school, you know? And before she knew it, things just kept going from bad to worse. Eileen was engaging in petty crimes and sex-to-time work to survive. The seeds of her tragic path were sown in these desperate years because when she was 15, her grandfather was like, we're not doing this no more. You can't stay here. And he kicked her out. And then she started living her life as a full-time sex-to-time worker to be able to support herself. I am going to sound like a broken record when I tell you I can't even imagine having to figure things out for myself at 15. This is crazy. I was 22 begging my dad to get a job. I can't even fathom. It's just like, I don't get it. 15 years old, it's so hard for me to comprehend. But yeah, that's what she ended up doing at 15. She was turning tricks to be able to support herself because she had nobody. Just breaks my heart. Her upbringing was just gut-wrenching, man. In the 1970s, Eileen began drifting across America, hitchhiking from state to state. Her life was a blur of arrests, failed relationships, and increasing despair. On May 27, when she was 18 years old, Eileen was arrested in Colorado for DUI, disorderly conduct, and firing a weapon from a moving car. In 1976, she caught a ride to Florida where she met 69-year-old yacht club president Louis Gratfell. They quickly got married and announced their little wedding situation in the papers. But even with her new marital status, Eileen never could control herself. She would get involved in confrontation at the local bars, and then she would go to jail briefly for assault. She also hit her brand new husband using his own cane. Poor guy. But also, what was wrong with him? She was like 20 at this point, right? In 1956. She was 20. Homeboy was 69 years old. That is a 49-year difference if my math is correct. Why are you, a 69-year-old person, using a cane because you can't even stand on your own 2 feet alone, marrying a 20-year-old bimbo? Why? It's giving predator, because what is wrong with you? I don't want to say that's what you get, but kind of that's what you get. So after she beat him with his own cane, he then filed a restraining order against her after only a couple of weeks of marriage, which ended up being annulled 9 weeks later because, she was too young and you were too old, and I had no business doing this. Eileen returned to Michigan and got into some more trouble and was arrested again. It's just a hot mess. She was just a hot mess. Now, to make matters worse, she ended up losing her brother to cancer. I couldn't find much about her relationship with her brother, like whether or not they kept in touch since she was kicked out of the house at 15. There wasn't much that was said about the brother after that, but I wonder what kind of relationship they had, because I don't know how young they were when they engaged in incest, right? So I wonder if there was like regrets or awkwardness to where they didn't talk much because they grew up and they kind of realized what they had done, and now it's like weird for them to talk. You know what I mean? I don't know. I was trying to find some information about her and her relationship with her brother, but I couldn't find anything. But I will assume that they somehow kept in touch and they still had some sort of relationship, because after he passed, she received 10 grand from his life insurance. So she had to have been the beneficiary. I cannot say that word, but you get what I'm saying. And for that, they had to have had a continued relationship, I assume. So yeah, she got them $10,000 from his life insurance, which she literally blew in like a matter of 2 months from buying stuff that she did not need. Again, the lack of training, because how the heck do you blow 10 grand in a matter of 2 months when you have been scraping by, working as a sexy time worker just to make ends meet, and $10,000 just fell on your lap just like that, and you're gonna blow it in like 2 months? That's crazy, but that's what she did. I don't know, man. Her demons were just alive and untamed. Eileen's life was a cycle of violence. She was both a victim and a perpetrator, shaped by the brutality of her circumstances. When she was 22 years old, she attempted to off herself by shooting herself in the stomach. And prior to that one incident, she had attempted to unalive herself 5 other times, starting when she was 14, which is crazy. Crazy stuff. In 1981, she was once again arrested in Edgewater, Florida. Oh my gosh, my stomping ground. For armed robbery, and she did end up going to jail for that. On May 1st, 1984, she was arrested again for trying to cash a forged check. That's crazy. On January 4th, 1986, she was yet again arrested in Miami this time and charged with car theft, resisting arrest and obstruction of justice for trying to steal her aunt's identification, basically. And then they found a gun and a box of ammo in the car that she stole from her aunt, I guess. And then she just, I don't know, they didn't keep her locked up for too long. She just kept moving about. On June 2nd, 1986, Volusia County Deputy Sheriff took her in after some dude she was probably getting paid to have relations with accused her of pulling a gun on him and asking him for money, which they did find the weapon underneath the passenger seat where she was sitting. So, yeah. Eileen was just busy. When Eileen was about 30 years old, she met a 24-year-old little girl. Well, not a little girl, but 6-year difference. It's not that bad. But anyway, she met a 24-year-old girl at a Daytona Beach gay bar called Zodiac. They started a relationship and ended up moving together. And of course, Eileen continued to work as a sexy time worker so she could support them. But nothing really changed. Eileen continued to just be arrested for assaulting people, for trying to steal from folks, etc. Sadly, that's not where she stopped. A few years later, she would shake things up a little bit and started taking lives. Between 1989 and 1990, Eileen took the lives of 7 men. Her victims were middle-aged men between the ages of 40 and 65 who had picked her up while she was hitchhiking, and each of them were shot multiple times with a .22 caliber pistol. Eileen claimed that her killings were acts of self-defense, alleging that the man had assaulted or attempted to assault her, but the evidence suggested otherwise, at least in some of the cases. Eileen unalived for the first time on November 30th, 1989. Eileen unalived 51-year-old electronics store owner Richard Charles Mallory in Clearwater, Florida. Again, all of my good old stomping ground. Eileen claimed that Mallory had beaten, raped, and sodomized her after he drove her to an abandoned area for sexy time services. She claimed it was self-defense later on, and it was revealed that Mallory had a history of graping. Mallory had previously been convicted of grape in Maryland, so we don't know if he really did do it or if she tried to trick him or rob him. I don't know, but his body was found on the 13th of December, very far from where he lived, and he had been shot several times. 2 of the bullets pierced his lungs, which was determined to have been his cause of death. 47-year-old construction worker David Andrew Spears would become her next victim. David disappeared on May 19th, 1990 in Winter Garden, Florida. Oh my goodness, these are literally my places. They would find his body on June 1st, 1990 on the US 19 and Citrus County. Okay, seriously, this is creeping me out because he literally worked in Citrus County. That's crazy. He had been shot 6 times. Oh man. Eileen unalived a 40-year-old Charles Edmund Caden, I hope I'm saying his name right, on May 31st, 1990. His body was found on June 6, 1990 in Pasco County. He was shot 9 times. That's a lot of anger. After that, Eileen stole his car, which witnesses saw her in possession of, and also stole his weapon, which she pawned. No shirt given at this point, I guess, because how are you going to take someone's life and then steal their things and go pawn them? Do you not care about things being traced back to you? And then you're flaunting around in their stolen car? Crazy stuff. But wait, there's more. 65-year-old Peter Abraham Seams would receive the same fate after he disappeared from Jupiter, Florida in June of 1990. However, Eileen was never charged for his murder because his body was never found, although they did find his car abandoned somewhere and Eileen's fingerprints were found on the door handle, but they didn't have a body, so therefore they had nothing to tie the murder to Eileen, so she wasn't charged for that one. And then she continued. It's like she had some sort of demon that would not allow her to stop. On July 31st, 1990, 50-year-old sausage salesman, interesting job, Troy Eugene Barres was reported missing from Ocala, Florida. His body was found with 2 GSWs on August 4th, 1990, along State Road 19 in Marion County. Sadly, Charles Richard Humphreys, also known as Dick Humphreys, again, very interesting names here, who was a 56-year-old retired United States Air Force, a former state child abuse investigator, and a former chief of police, was not lucky either. Eileen unalived him on September 11th of 1990, and his body was found on September 12, 1990, also in Marion County. He had all of his clothes on, but he had 7 GSW in the head and torso. Do you know how angry you have to be to shoot somebody this many times? Especially if you shoot someone in the head, they're most likely not going to be moving around trying to get you, you know? If her story was plausible and they were attempting to assault her or rape her and things of that nature, there's a lot of rage and hatred in her killings because of how many times these people were shot, you know? Last but not least, 61-year-old trucker, security guard, and reserve police officer Walter Gino Antonio also did not escape Eileen's wrath. On November 19, 1990, Walter's almost naked body was found near a remote lodging in Dixie County. He had 4 GSWs, and 5 days later his car was located in Brevard County. We're gonna say Brevard. But like I always say, no good deed goes unpunished. On July 4th, 1990, Eileen and her little girlfriend got into a car accident in one of the victims' car that they had stolen, and witnesses reported the incident and gave their description to the police because they literally got in an accident and they abandoned the car. So their information and picture and stuff made it to the news, and they were on the hunt for them. They also found their stuff at pawn shops. Eileen's fingerprints were all over receipts found at the pawn shop, and the same fingerprints matched the ones collected at the crime scene in the victim's car. And since she was already in the database because she had been arrested so many times, they were able to match the fingerprints on the receipts with the ones that they already have in their database and confirm that it was Eileen's fingerprints. It was a match. So on January 9, 1991, Eileen was arrested in Volusia County, and then the next day her little girlfriend was located in Pennsylvania. She agreed to snitch on Eileen in exchange for like immunity. They agreed, and she would end up testifying against Eileen, who described her as the love of her life. Oh yeah, she loved you, Eileen. On January 16, 1991, Eileen would confess to the murders. However, she claimed that the man had tried to assault her and she unalived them in self-defense. Side note here, and this is not an important part of the story, but when I was reading this, I saw that this lady, this 44-year-old woman, saw everything that was happening in the news with Eileen and whatnot, and she decided to legally adopt Eileen. Mind you, 1991, Eileen was, let's do some math, hold please, 35 years old. So I don't know why this 44-year-old, who was like literally 9 years older than Eileen, I don't know why she decided to adopt this 35-year-old woman who was on trial for murder. They were complete strangers to one another. They did not know each other from Adam outside of Eileen's pictures in the newspaper. I just thought that was weird. I need context because that does not make sense to me at all. But anyways, let's get back to our regular scheduled program. On January 4th, 1992, Eileen went to trial for the case of Richard Charles Mallory. Now, remember that Eileen had claimed that she did all that she did in self-defense and that these people were trying to like assault her and whatnot. So in Mallory's case, also remember that he served time for assaulting a minor. So they try to bring all that up, stating that Mallory was not an innocent man. He had previous charges against him for doing this exact type of thing that Eileen accused him of doing and all that good stuff. But the judge was like, yeah, no, we're not going to take this. We're not going to accept this. This is not to be entered into the evidence situation, whatever lawyers do. I don't know. So they threw it out. On January 27, Eileen was convicted of murder in the Mallory's case with a little help from her little girlfriend, you know, the love of her life. Who needs enemies when you got loyal girlfriends, right? Now, psychiatrists For the defense, they testified that Eileen was not right in the upstairs area. They described her as being mentally unstable and diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. But that didn't help in the case at all because 4 days later, she was sentenced to death. Now, regarding the other victims, Eileen would try at first to plead no contest. However, she ended up pleading guilty for 6 more counts of murder and ended up receiving another 5 death sentences, which brought her total up to 6 death sentences. It would have been 7, but they didn't find a body for Peter Abraham Sims, so she was never charged, like I said before, for his disappearance. But in total, she ended up with 6 death sentences. That is crazy. Oh my goodness. Eileen had a really hard time getting her stories together, though. There were so many inconsistencies in her recounting everything that happened. She first claimed that all 7 men had raped or attempted to grape her while she was working as a sexy time worker. So then she acted in self-defense. And then she would tell another story saying that she robbed them and she didn't want to leave behind any witnesses. So it was just chaotic. She couldn't get her stories straight. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think she really was defending herself, or was she a cold-blooded unaliver? Or could it have happened for one? Maybe one of them did try to like grape her, and then maybe the others, she just got angry with the rest of them, even though they didn't do anything to her. I don't know. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. In 2001, while she was on death row, Eileen decided to get rid of her legal counsel and just cancel all of her future appeals and stated, quote, "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I am so sick of hearing that she's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I am competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth. I am one who seriously hates human life and would kill again." End quote. Yeah, that's definitely not, in my opinion, somebody who was right in the upstairs in the head. However, it could also mean that she is actually right in the head and that she did unalive those people, in cold blood. And she just wants this to be over with. She knows that she's going to be executed and she just doesn't want to sit around and wait for a very long time for the inevitable. So she's trying to get them to get on with it. She's accepted her fate and she's ready to move on. I think that's what she was doing. I don't know. Her lawyers did not agree that she was mentally competent, but Eileen swore up and down that she knew what she was doing, and so did her psychiatrist. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that little confession did not expedite her situation. She was still held on death row. In 2002, she started accusing the prison people of putting crap in her food, like spit and urine. Ew. She said that she heard conversation of them trying to do the worst thing to her so that she would end up taking her own life, and that people were plotting to grape her before her execution. She claimed that they made the conditions so bad for her and that she would refuse to take showers or eat when certain officers were working. We don't know if any of that is true, but that's what Eileen was claiming that they were doing to her in there. Eileen gave a lot of interviews while she was on death row, and 2 weeks before her actual execution, she was giving an interview, and towards the end of the interview, she completely lost it. She crashed out saying, quote, "You sabotaged my ass, society and the cops and the system. A raped woman got executed and was used for books and movies and shirt. Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass." End quote. She was just over it. On October 9th, 2002, Eileen was executed by lethal injection. She declined her last meal and just had some coffee instead. Her last words were, quote, "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back. I'll be back." End quote. She was pronounced dead at 9:47 a.m. She was the second woman in Florida and the 10th in the United States to be executed since 1976, when the United States Supreme Court decided to restore the capital punishment. Eileen's body was cremated and her ashes were scattered back in her hometown of Michigan. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Eileen Carol Pittman, also known as Eileen Wuornos. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Again, like I said, I'm not making excuses for her, but her upbringing, I strongly believe, really contributed to her personality disorders and her anger and hatred inside of her, especially against man, because that's who she was violated by growing up. And, I don't agree with the unaliving of people, but I think I could see why she was this violent and this angry. And she literally had zero support, no outlet, nothing, no one to help her. She literally was left alone with her demons, and there was nothing good that could have come out of that, Her case is a tragic intersection of systemic failure and personal trauma. She was both, like I said before, a victim of her circumstances and a perpetrator of terrible crimes. So it was like, okay, I've suffered at the hands of these men. I am angry. I hate them. So I'm just going to go and just unalive them, even if they look at me sideways. Because a lot of the times when people have certain trauma, they have a difficult time deciphering between reality and what their triggers are presenting to them. You know what I mean? Like, say, for example, somebody violated you, right? And then you're dealing with the trauma. And if somebody looks at you funny, you might think, oh, you're about to violate me too. And then you go into defense mode instead of just seeing the reality for what it is. And that person is not about to violate you. They just might be looking at you funny for whatever reason, but if they look at you in a way that reminded you of how that person looked at you before they violated you, then you think that they're about to do the same thing to you. So I think that's what may have happened in Eileen's case. Like, I don't think most of these people were about to violate her, but she had already perceived them as threats because they were men, and she was in situations with them where that's usually what would happen. So she either was robbing them or she perceived a threat that wasn't there. And so she decided to take care of it before she got hurt. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Eileen's life and crimes remain a stark reminder of the consequences of neglect, abuse, and unchecked violence. Her story is not one of simple villainy, but of a deeply troubled soul lost in a cruel world. She was left alone. I cannot repeat this enough. She was left alone with her demons, with zero support, and that did not help her case, and it for sure did not help these men who perished at her hands. Her story has been recounted a few times. There's a lot of documentaries about her life, but there's this one movie starring Charlize Theron called Monster. Oh my gosh, I could barely recognize Charlize in that movie. She did such a good job. I thought I was looking at Eileen. Like, it was weird. It was very weird, but she did such a good job depicting all the hurt and pain that Eileen must have endured. Like, it's really good if you can stomach it. She did a really good job. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Although you guys never do, but I do mean it. Let me know what you think down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one. But until then, I hope to see you in the comment section. Bye.